the real question is, well, is it better to have AI generated captions if it means that you're at least posting to social media or not? It boils down to having the skill set that you're going to the AI platform for in the first place.
We're transitioning to this new way of thinking and using AI. You said it's not about being replaced, it's about how effectively you can use AI.
If we can tell that you copied something straight from ChatGPT, it's going to be frowned upon collectively. And I think the only way we're going to get there is until we hit that wall where what we're seeing right now stops working. If what we can sense in those AI generated captions or AI generated emails is like a lack of human connection, then I think you're going to miss the entire point of what you were doing in the first place.
Oh my goodness.
And we're back.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome back to another episode of a marketing podcast. I'm Kayla. And this is
Angelina,
my lovely co-host, Angelina. We are happy to be back. Don't mention how long it's been, because we're not going to mention how long it's been. We just, happy to be here yet another day with you all. So I have my notes here because I like to ramble, and we don't want to ramble. We want to be concise and succinct. But I'm excited today because we are going to talk about AI, right? So when Angelina and I first had a conversation about like what should the second episode of this podcast be about, AI was one of the first things she mentioned. And I think it's because you and Grace and some of our other team members use a lot of AI in terms of like the creation process, right? And I'm not old, but I'm older. And so I find myself being a little less excited, if you will, to try out like new softwares and things like that. So a lot of it hadn't really been in my purview, but as you and Grace do work and mention things to me, or if I'm reviewing work and I'm able to see like, okay, this needs to be tweaked here, this needs to be tweaked here, and then conversations about those softwares come up, it's like, oh, we need to have a conversation about how do you actually use AI, right? Like what are the different things that you need to pay attention to, need to be cognizant of? And so we felt like, the conversations we've been having behind the scenes, this seemed like a good one to have again in front of an audience. So to start things off, I wanted to ask you, what AI softwares do you use? And they don't have to just be like related to marketing work, but just in general, like which ones do you use?
Yeah, I would say my top 3 would be ChatGPT, Midjourney, and Grammarly. Even though we are approaching 2024 and, it's, hustle culture and AI tends to generate things faster, it's kind of like a mini assistant, And so I feel like I'll break down the 3 I use a little bit more, but I feel like being equipped and learning and knowing AI as we go into 2024 is going to be such an asset to us and to others as well. So first, everybody know ChatGPT. I had mentioned to you that it was a 3.5 version, and then what was the other one? The 4 version, 4.0?
I don't know, right?
Oh my goodness.
So
I got
I pay for ChatGPT.
So she has the next version. I think, I have the regular, the standard one. And I did try to apply to get the one that Kayla has, but it's a freaking waiting list. That's crazy.
You gotta be an early adapter, folks. Okay. When I first found out about ChatGPT, I went ahead and paid for it. So when we were talking about it, I didn't even know that there was a difference. But apparently, there's like different versions. You were saying?
Yeah, it's 2 different versions. It's the free version, and then they running your auto bill every month or whatever. So
they are. But I hear that they're like long wait times sometimes.
Yeah, I still haven't got approved, so I don't know what's going on.
Well, it's okay.
So ChatGPT, and we can talk about that later on in the episode on really using and not manipulating, but knowing the back end and the skills to ask it the right questions, and we'll get to that later on. But yeah, ChatGPT, and then Midjourney. I feel like Midjourney is like so cool because you can literally type up what you want, and it's like its own little, you got your secondary brain. And it's like you type up a story and it'll generate or auto generate pictures for you. like a story. It's really cute.
Like drawings or like
Like
pictures, like
Kayla.
photos.
Yes. What do you mean drawings? Picture.
Painting, like it could.
Oh yeah, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. It's really dope. So it was this one. It was like about. It was one of the classes. They had like a pig going across the water, and so they were playing. I was in there when they were talking about it, but they were playing around with it and like telling like, oh, one of them was having a lot of pigs go across the water, like, and it'll generate all of that. But I just feel like that's very creative when it comes to making like different stories or having different outcomes to certain things. You just give your brain a little push on its creativity. Next will be Grammarly, because your girl, I can speak, but when it comes to grammar and math, like I can write too, but it's like I just need a little tweaking on my grammar part. On the punctuation, that's not my strong suit, but it just cleans up your sentences, your sentence structures, puts the punctuation where it needs to go, because when I type, I just like to free type and like draft it, and then it'll go back and revise it for me. So yeah, those are I would say my top 3, but there's a lot more out there, but those are the main ones that I use. I'm not sure which ones Grace uses.
Okay, yeah. So I use ChatGPT. I use Grammarly. I know Grace uses, which is our video editor. She uses and introduced me to Descript,
Mm-hmm.
which is very similar to other video
Mm-hmm.
editing softwares, except that it does have like that. They call them, I think, fancy captions. You know, the ones that kind of pop up on the screen. They have the ability to transcribe the video. They got a lot of other features, but I think Midjourney, I wasn't super familiar with that one. But between ChatGPT and I guess Midjourney, if you use that often, like what is your process for using those? Like how do you engage with them, or when do you use them?
Okay, so when I use ChatGPT, it's basically for, like I said, like a mini assistant as well. And then I want to know how, after I answer, how you use it as well. But like mini assistant, like you have to know what type of questions and tell it what tone to give, so you can really give you. I feel like if you don't know the foundation, it's gonna give you a trash answer to it. So if you ask the trash question, you're gonna be like, if it comes back with a trash answer, it's gonna be like, dang.
What type of questions do you ask? Like what do you use it for?
Man, it could go from a variety of what I want, recipes, meals. It could go to social media, as into different names for things, help with captions, and recently I help with like topics and brainstorming things like that. So it's really good with that as well. But I just like the little extra oomph that it gives, and then sometimes I can take some of the words it gives, because it gives very, kind of, they be kind of lame sometimes. But so I gotta tweak it a little bit, but it's just a good, push.
Not lame.
Yeah.
So like if you were talking about recipes, like what would you ask it for, recipes using specific foods, or like how do you prompt it to give you recipes?
I mean, you could just like, for instance, if you're like meal prepping or whatever.
I mean, you specifically, like how do you use it?
Yeah, I mean, if you meal prepping or whatever, if you could ask for like a meal, it could give you the recipe for a meal or whatever. So that's what I mean.
Well, yeah, and the reason I ask is because we all, like you mentioned it being an assistant, but we all would use a personal assistant differently too. So that's why I was trying to get a better understanding of like, do you already know what you want and sometimes you just need help fleshing it out, or do you use it to help you figure out what you want?
I mean, it's a variety, either or. So how would you say that you use it?
I tend to kind of already have an idea of what I'm trying to do, and I use it. I would say a good example would be like, if you're ever in a conversation with somebody and you're trying to like explain maybe or bring up like an actor from a movie, all of the moments where you be like, that's when I use ChatGPT.
You could just look that up in Google though.
But I mean, that's how I use it, period. So if I'm like, ooh, I need to, I don't know, let's say I want to write a story about X, Y, and Z, and I want it to be similar to this other movie or this other story. Instead of me trying to figure out like what the different details of that story were to then try to recreate it, I would go to ChatGPT and be like, let's say, give me 4 movies about X, Y, and Z, right? If I'm trying to recall a movie. And then from there, I might be like, okay, cool. how would you outline the story arc of that particular movie? Like I use it to help me kind of think through stuff, but I don't necessarily use it as I don't really use it as an idea generator. I wouldn't say, but I know some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do. Like they'll be like, give me, I don't know, 4 posts for social media about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I don't use it like that.
Mm-hmm.
I put a little bit more thought into what it is I'm trying to accomplish first, and like I said, then I'll use AI or the softwares to kind of help me get it over the line, which really saves a lot of time because what takes me the most time is trying to remember stuff. You know, my friend said I have the memory of a goldfish. It's not very reliable, but yeah, and I know in some of our conversations before, when we talk about AI, I mentioned how I'm usually able to tell when somebody has used AI, particularly like on social media. And we've had conversation about that. Like I know reviewing work internally, whether it was stuff you've done, stuff I've done, other folks have done, if I'm able to sense that not just that AI was used, but that what I'm looking at AI generated most of, I'm like, okay, we need to go back into that a little bit. I think one of the questions that comes up is whether that's a bad thing or not. Because I think the real question is, well, is it better to have AI generated captions if it means that you're at least posting to social media or not? And I mean, it can go either or, but I think if we got down to the point, right, of any form of marketing, particularly social media, anything that people can read, whether it's captions or email, the whole point is to connect with other people. And so if what we can sense in those AI generated captions or AI generated emails is like a lack of human connection, then I think you're going to miss the entire point of what you were doing in the first place. So on one hand, I do think there's some value to using AI in whatever capacity, regardless of how much like collaborating you do with the software, to get you a final product if it means you're showing up online more often. But the drawback again is going to be like the possibility of not having that human connection, that element that's supposed to be there, you know, for the whole point in the first place. So I think I think this next year, 2024, is definitely going to be interesting. I'm interested to see how the wave goes, right? Because I think, you know, we started out not really having access to that, then we got access to it, and I think like the usage of it is steadily increasing, and I suspect we're gonna see it be like a wave and it start to recede a little bit because again,
Why do you think it's going to recede?
because I think the point of marketing is human connection and engagement, and I think people are going to start to see the engagement drop because humans are going to read that stuff, we're going to engage with it, and we're going to tell it wasn't done by a human being, and we're not going to respond. And I think marketers, whether they're in-house in certain companies or if you're being, if you're an agency, you're being contracted, if the results aren't there and, you know, people are spending money on it, they're going to want to see something different. And I think the difference is going to be people having to go back to a more natural, organic, albeit unrefined form of communicating. And I can't lie to you, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see what the future has to hold. I don't know about that one, Kayla, but if you see it, it might come true, bro.
I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen across the board. Like even with like tech, like baby, I can't stand a cashierless store. Okay,
I don't think it's ever gonna revert back to. I don't think that's gonna happen.
I think there are gonna be some savvy business owners who are going to find themselves in a position where their unique selling proposition is gonna be human beings. I already see that. Like I can see some of the language being speak to a real person, because we're gonna get tired of it very soon. But that's just my prediction. You know, we gonna see.
So when it comes to back to AI and companies and marketers using it, why do you think, or what would you say is like the main reason, or why they would use it over or using it with a company rather than by themselves?
You're asking what would be the reason for a company to hire an agency versus do stuff on their own?
Yes, hiring us rather than doing it by themselves.
I think it all boils down to you still need to have certain skills and a point of reference for what you're doing, whether you're using AI or not. And so, if you're in the position where you don't know a lot about marketing, if we're talking marketing specifically, if you don't know a whole lot about marketing or you don't understand it deeply, and you start using things like ChatGPT or even Midjourney or other things to help you generate content, if you don't know what you're looking for, or if you don't know what you're hoping to accomplish, or if you don't know what that end product needs to look like, then you aren't going to know to keep prompting the software so that you can refine what you get, right? You're going to be more likely to take the first thing that ChatGPT gives you and post it online. And just a small thing. When ChatGPT gives you something, when it's bold in ChatGPT, when you copy and paste it, it's not going to paste bold. It's going to paste with 2 asterisks. That's going to be a dead giveaway that you use ChatGPT. Just so we clear, just little hint, little note. At minimum, go back and erase the double asterisks around the word. Like it's, but that's when I say I can tell, it's clear. You didn't even read. But if you're not a marketer, if you don't understand, or if you're not even just paying attention to the language that you're using and making sure that it is going to connect with your audience, you're not going to read thoroughly or try to tweak what it gives you. You're going to take it and post it. And then people like me going to be able to tell that you took it and posted it and be like, lame. Or if you got 50 billion emojis in the caption, like, but my point is, if you aren't in this industry or you aren't like maybe nerdy about communication in general, you aren't going to know to go back and tweak those things, right? And it goes back to my point. If I'm looking at it and scrolling past it because I know it's AI generated and other people start to do that, you're not going to get the engagement that you were hoping for, which completely defeats the purpose. So you're going to either pay on the front end or the back end. Now, the benefit to working with an agency, whether we use it or not, is that we know what we're looking for, right? We know the goal that we're trying to accomplish. We know the emotion we're trying to pull out of people. We know the action we're trying to get them to take. We understand human psychology. We understand human connection. And so we're able to use AI as more of a assistant or collaborator, right? We're not reliant on it for the skills like people who, may not have the skills and may just be using software. So, same thing with graphic design, right? Like you have to understand how to design a graphic. You have to understand the foundations of, how certain elements work together in order to know that what you've been, given by an AI software either works or doesn't. And honestly, even to collaborate well with it, you have to understand what you're doing, right? If ChatGPT gives me a caption and I know that, it's using language that's way more elevated than my audience, I would have to know that, right? I got to know my audience and I have to understand language in order to prompt it to do something differently, right? In order to say, okay, give that back to me in a way that a 4th grader could understand it, right? If you don't have that context or that skill set, you won't even know to do that. And so it's definitely a tool that is going to make a lot of what we do seemingly more accessible to more people. And that kind of goes back to my original kind of fork in the road. Do we post more consistently even though it's not good? Or do we invest in something that's going to be more impactful? I think that's going to be just up to the companies individually. But don't think that just because ChatGPT or some of these other softwares exist that you can skip professionals. And that's in any field.
So how would you, as a professional, since you said, you have to have the basic skills, as a professional, how would you say we would make it more authentic for the audience?
I'll just give one of the examples that comes to mind when I think about like how AI is impacting just authenticity in general when we start talking about content that we're putting out, right? So I'm in this program. We have different like small groups. And at the beginning of the program, in my small group, they asked us to come up with like a group name, a logo, a culture, basically like a mini brand identity, right? And so different business owners in the group, I was the only marketer. So I assumed that they would start looking to me for it. But I was shocked when one of my group members was like, oh, I can do the logo. And I was like, okay, good. And he was like, there's this AI software I use for it. And I thought, oh, that's actually pretty good because I ain't super into all of the new softwares. So I probably would have had to do it manually, which would have taken me some time. So my assumption though was that he was a graphic designer and would have just used the software to speed it up. And then they pulled it up, and then he immediately starts like playing with different logos, and I'm thinking, we don't have a group name or like, what are we basing this logo off of? And so I was like, hey y'all, can we start with like maybe somebody else, I think, mentioned that name. I was like, can we start with like some of the meat, the context? And I was like, can we start with the culture and then move to the name and then move to the logo? Like, as a marketer, that's how I'm thinking. And so they were like, cool. We kind of started with the culture conversation, and then somebody else jumped to name, and then same guy was like, oh, I got a AI software for that too. I was like, okay. I'm pretty sure he ran a ChatGPT, and like he just came back with a bunch of like words. And after a while, I started to kind of back up because I was like, oh, okay, this ain't that important. This don't really matter. And so they picked a random word from that list. They chose a random like logo from the AI software. They threw it all together. They turned it in. And I'm sure to them it looked like professional, but it wasn't like a representation of the group. And part of the reason that it wasn't is because they went to AI so fast in the process, we didn't get to have human conversation or connection at all. And that, after that experience, I was like, oh, this is where we're going to start running into trouble with folks using AI, because the AI itself wasn't the problem, right? Again, using it for the logo was genius because it could have sped up the process. But like, I would have done it differently, right? I would have started with the culture conversation. What do we want this to be like? Hearing from all of our group members. I probably would have thrown all of those notes from that conversation, maybe into a ChatGPT and said something like, um, based on these notes, give me back um, 4 key points for a value statement, something like that. From there, I would have asked the group, hey, y'all, like, based on our culture, just throw out some words that come to mind when you read this. Like, and would have taken all of those words. And it would have been a great exercise because people are going to have different backgrounds, different perspectives. Those things would have come up, right, in the words we all decided to use. If, somebody said, if we said that we were, let's just say, I want to say we maybe use the word elevate. People start throwing out words. Somebody might have said mountain. Somebody might have said elevator. Somebody might have said blood pressure. Like, these are all different, but they're all connected to ChatGPT. Can't do that for you. Like, it's only going to give you back what you give it. But those different human perspectives would have given us a deeper pool to pull from for inspiration, and then we could have partnered with AI to kind of refine that. So, once we had that conversation, we maybe pulled some common themes out. Then we could have sent it back to like a ChatGPT or whatever and been like, help us come up with a name. Then from there, we could have been more specific in our prompting to that logo thing, whatever software that was, and been like, give us a logo for this group name that has these colors, that has the motif of mountain, whatever the case may be. Like, it still would have been us using AI, but it would have been us using it more strategically based on the foundation of human connection, right? But like I said, the way they jumped to AI immediately to do it for them, and it was really cringy because there was a final product, and I'm sure they all felt like, yeah, this is fine, and it really wasn't that serious. Like, it was just a group project. But personally, my heart was breaking because I'm like, no, guys, like, that's not how any of this works. um but that kind of goes back to the point of AI can't replace professionals, right? Like the conversation about our jobs are we gonna be replaced by AI? It's like, no, you won't be replaced by AI. The common theme is that you're gonna be replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI, right? Because AI is gonna make it quicker. It's gonna speed up the process. But again, if you don't know what you're looking for or listening for, or if you don't understand how this works well enough to prompt whatever software you're using to tweak things appropriately, it's not gonna yield the results that I think people may think it will, which is why my prediction is we're gonna roll it on back. We're gonna roll it on back.
So I have kind of like two questions. So how would you say that you would tweak or tweak AI to use it effectively on how you would want to. And then on the back end of that, you go back to human connection. So when it comes to human connection, I don't think it's ever just going to go straight for like, we go back to survival days, caveman. I don't think it's going to go like that. So I feel like you need to use human connection slash community with AI synonymous. So how would you make that perfect merge of the two?
I don't think that there's going to be a way to do it necessarily from the software side. I think it's going to boil down to how we collectively decide to use it. That would probably end up being taught, right? Like, so I don't know if you've ever seen them. I get a lot of ads for like ChatGPT prompts, right? People have already put prompts together on what you can tell ChatGPT to give you back something worthwhile. We may shift into a space where you're learning about AI in school, but you're also learning how to use it like in the way we're just talking about, where maybe the professional standard is like set and communicated, where you are only expected to use it in this certain way, right? Basically, what I'm getting at is if we get to a point where if we can tell that you copied something straight from ChatGPT, it's going to be frowned upon collectively. And I think the only way we're going to get there is until we hit that wall where what we're seeing right now stops working. It's a space we haven't been in before, so I'm really not sure how it's going to play out, because it's almost like, giving somebody a test and giving them all of the answers and then telling them not to use them, right? Like, I don't know how we're gonna like regulate that.
I feel like as I'm listening to you, you're talking about just the basis of knowing how to. I feel like it should be incorporated in the schools. If we're transitioning to this new way of thinking and using AI, you said it's not about being replaced. It's about if AI, how effectively you can use AI. I feel like they need to start incorporating that in the school. They should start giving classes, keeping up with the program, or get left behind, but having classes on the fundamentals of the skill sets that you need to have to proceed in school and to do your best in school, to then go to jobs and use AI efficiently and effectively. I feel like that would be fire.
Yeah, I think, and this is absolutely commentary on the school system, but we're doing such a poor job of the foundation now. Like before AI came into the mix, people didn't know the foundations. So my concern is I don't know how well we're going to be able to do that with this in existence. It kind of reminds me, listening to you speak, kind of reminds me of like growing up, how we had to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, divide before we got to use calculators. It's like now calculators are like in our pockets, right? Like we didn't, when I was in school, we literally just didn't have access to the calculators. It's not going to be that simple. And I think because it's such a like, it's becoming such a normal part of our culture, I almost feel like it's going to breed mental laziness. And we already mentally lazy now. Like we already don't think critically enough now. I'm not confident that AI is going to help that at all. And so I don't know what it looks like to like integrate those things. The only thing I could think would be, which I don't think nobody would like, you would be forced to make like the testing of knowledge harder. It's gonna have to be hard. Like it's gonna have to be harder and deeper. I don't think, like I said, we already don't do it super well right now. So I don't know. Like, I don't know, does that look like testing people allowed? Like, because even if we're talking about, like, when I think about what I could do to demonstrate to someone else that I've thought about something deeply, maybe write a paper. Y'all can use AI to do that. And so I don't know what the new like elements that you could look for in content that would signify like authenticity. Somebody would have to figure that out. Like, what are we looking for that lets us know a person wrote this and not? I don't know. It's gonna be, and again, I feel like that's gonna be part of it. The the school systems are gonna get too frustrated to figure it out. I think the workplaces are probably gonna get too frustrated to figure it out, and I could totally see people rolling it back.
So to summarize everything that you said today, so how would you say being authentic, being, knowing how to use it, and everything, how would you say would be the main takeaway as a marketer and that connection and human connection community?
Well, I think it boils down to having the skill set that you're going to the AI platform for in the first place.
For the one time, go ahead and list the top 3 skill sets that you believe that you need for AI to use it effectively.
As a marketer,
Yes.
I think you need to know how to write. To be honest, I would probably leave it there. You need to understand like the basics of design,
Why would you say the basics of design?
because if you were to use a software to help you generate graphics, if you don't understand the basics of design in terms of how elements interact with each other, how people like perceive those things, same thing with writing, you aren't going to know how to tweak it. You know, what it gives you may not be appropriate for the platform you're using, those types of things. But if you don't know that, you don't know that. Honestly, yeah, I would say being able to write, having the foundations of a good writer and graphic design. I mean, which all of that is tied to communications in general. Attention to detail, which will help across the board. Because again, it's the small things that make a difference. And if you aren't keen on paying attention to those small things anyway, it's easy to just let whatever AI gives you hit the timeline, slip through the cracks. So what about you? Since we've been talking about this and you've been kind of doing work, like have you changed how you use AI at all? Do you feel like,
Just like you said, I feel like attention to detail and, asking the right questions. Yeah. What would you say would be the foundation of asking the right question before we wrap it up?
asking the right questions of
Yes.
like to AI?
Yes. To give it the answer that you want in a professional way.
Like I said, understanding what it is you're doing. So if you understand, if we're writing the captions, if you understand that thoroughly, like what makes a good caption, the tone you need to use for your audience and things like that, then you can recognize what's wrong with what ChatGPT gives you, and you can prompt it in the right direction. You got to be savvy, man. You just got to be, and honestly, I think you got to be smart.
Get right or get left.
You got to be savvy. You got to be smart. Look, now, don't let AI think for you, okay? be crafty, be creative, use it collaboratively to come up with something new, something better. Use it to expand on what you can do and not, totally replace skills you don't have. And read. In general, just read more. I want everybody to read more. The more we all read, the smarter we will be. The larger our point of reference will be for things. I think the better off we're gonna all be. So that's what I would say.
All right. I think you gave the people everything that they need to hear.
I hope so. I think AI gonna be one of my what do we call it? See, this is a moment I would use AI.
That's terrible.
Memory of a goldfish. I can't help it. That's one of my when you're frustrated and your soapbox. It's one of my soapboxes.
I ain't never heard that before. Okay.
See what I'm talking about? You don't know what a soapbox is?
Okay, we're not gonna get into it.
No, but honestly, it's a riff. But if you don't know what it is, that's great.
What is that?
We could talk about it later. But that's a good. Because if ChatGPT had given you something about soapbox, you wouldn't know what it was, huh? Or what to do with it.
I don't know. Kayla, we in like 2 different. Okay, I'm just playing. All right, guys. Close them out for the one time.
Well, we appreciate y'all for tuning in to this podcast with this young person and this old lady.
I didn't say that.
Whew.
I just said we kind of like in 2 different. Close them out, Kayla.
We are in 2 different generations. We appreciate y'all for tuning in. let us know what y'all think about AI. Do you agree with me? Do you think we're gonna roll it all the way back to the Stone Ages? Or do you think, like what Angelina said, like
Y'all leave it in the comments.
it's here. Do y'all think that it's getting in the way of human connection? Or do you think like I'm tripping?
I think if you can make it synonymous with each other and not fight either or, then that's where it will harmonize together. You just gotta find the even balance, like on a scale.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what y'all think. And we'll talk to y'all next time.
See y'all in the next episode. Bye, guys.